Pancake was the name of makeup material bought in Gemini Studios. The makeup department was in the upstairs of a building, said to have been Robert Clive's stables. The makeup room looked like a haircutting salon, with lights at all angles. It was a fiery misery for those subjected to makeup. The department was first headed by a Bengali, then by Maharashtrian, who was assisted by a Dharwar, Andhra, Christian and Tamils. This shows that there was national integration, long before AIR and Doordarshan. The makeup men would make any actor look ugly like a monster, using pancake, potions and lotions. The hierarchy was maintained in the department. Chief would do makeup of the main hero-heroine, senior assistant, second hero-heroine, junior assistant, comedian, and so forth. The makeup department had an office boy, who in fact was in his 40s. His work was to do makeup of crowd players. The author worked in a cubicle. His work was to collect newspaper cuttings all day. Others thought he did a work meant for barbers. Anyone would come to him and give a lecture. Similarly, the office boy came and read out his poems. The author prayed for crowd shooting to get rid of him. The office boy thought that all his woes, ignominy and neglect, were due to Kothamangalam Subbu. Subbu was number 2 at Gemini Studios. He had to face difficult times to begin his career. He was less educated than the office boy. He had the ability to look cheerful at all times. His loyalty attracted his principal, the boss. He was tailor-made for films. Once the producer wanted to do the scene of a rat killing a tigress, but showing love to her cubs. Subbu came out with 4 ways of showing this scene. When he wasn't satisfied, Subbu came out with 14 more ways. He was a poet too. He composed story poems and wrote a novel, Thalana Mohanambal. He also played subsidiary roles in films. His house was a permanent residence for dozens of near and far acquaintances. Yet he had enemies, perhaps because he was so close with the boss. He was grouped under the story department, which comprised a legal advisor, writers and poets. Once a talented but moody actress burst out on the sets. The lawyer quietly switched on the recording equipment. When she stopped, he played it back. Hearing her own voice, she was shocked. She couldn't recover from the terror, and her career ended. The legal advisor, lawyer, was a man of cold logic in a crowd of dreamers. As he was close to the boss, he was allowed to produce a film. Though a lot of pancake was used, his film turned out flop. The boss closed down the story department, and he lost his job. The studios was the favorite place for poets like SDS Yogiar, Sangu Subramaniam, Krishna Sastry and Harendranath Chattopadhyaya. A cup of coffee was a satisfying entertainment. Everyone except office boy and some clerks radiated leisure. Most wore khadi and worshipped Gandhi. They were against the idea of communism. Frank Bunchman's Moral Re-Armament Army, MRA, chose the studios as host. MRA was a counter-movement to international communism. They presented the plays Jotham Valley and The Forgotten Factor, and impressed the Tamil drama community. Months later, telephones of big bosses of Madras buzzed, as a visitor was coming to the studio. Some guessed he was an editor. The boss, Mr. Vasan, introduced him but didn't know much about him. When the visitor spoke, he told about his thrills and travails as a poet. Due to his British accent, the audience couldn't understand a word. His visit was a mystery. The Hindu had published that a short story contest was being organized by a periodical, The Encounter. To know about the periodical, he sneaked into the British Council library. There were copies of the periodical lying. The editor's name was Stephen Spender. He was the editor who had visited Gemini Studios. The author felt a bell ringing in his heart. Years later, he found books on a footpath for 50 paise each. He bought one copy of book, The God That Failed. In this, 6 writers described their journeys to communism and their disillusioned return. One of those was Stephen Spender. Thus, the purpose of his visit to the studios was revealed.